Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Welcome to today's Allen School Distinguished Lecture. It is really our great pleasure to welcome a truly distinguished lecturer today. Jenny LeFleury is Microsoft Chief Accessibility Officer, which is super exciting. And she will be telling us about Microsoft's journey to bridge the disability divide, which really means the gap in societal inclusion of people with disabilities. Jenny has, a very just does many exciting things. I'm going to just say a few things about her. Jenny leads many initiatives to empower people with disabilities both inside and outside of Microsoft. As one example, she founded the Disability Employee Resource Group at Microsoft and chaired it for 10 years. She created the Disability Answer Desk, which provides specialist customer support to people with disabilities, and guess how many calls? 1 million calls handled to date, so really impressive. She also hosts the annual Microsoft Ability Summit, which focuses on empowering more than 12,000 people registered to the event in learning how to, how to innovate and how to think in a way that enables really accessibility for people around the world. Jenny was recognized for a lot of those efforts. She was nominated as a technology groundbreaker by CEO Satya Nadella in Wired magazine. She was recognized as a Disability Employment Champion of Change by the White House back in 2014, and also as one of Fast Company's most creative people in business. So truly exciting. So it's really a great honor to have Jenny with us today. We are hosting today's talk together with CREATE. This is our Center for Research and Education on Accessible Technology and Experiences. I know that many people from CREATE are here. And actually, I just want to take a plug for the center. They're doing such exciting work in research, in education, in outreach, and I really invite everyone here to also check out the CREATE's website. You just Google CREATE UW, and it will take you right through it. So now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Jenny. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. All right, folks, can you hear me? How you doing? How many of you are here as part of UW Create? All right, the gang at the front. All right. All right, so I know where my troublemakers are and who I need to look past. No, I love you guys. All right, so it's wonderful to be here. It's an incredible honor for me to be here. I'm Jenny LeFleury. I know the name looks really fancy in French. It's not. I am British. I'm not Australian either, even though many people think I am and try to give me Vegemite, which is like the biggest insult that you can ever do to a Brit is try to give them Vegemite, particularly where the banner on Twitter is all about Marmite. And if you guys don't know what Marmite is, good, go look it up. But let's talk a little bit about disability. I'm going to kind of weave, there's some Microsoft stuff in here, but more importantly, I want to talk about the world of disability, accessibility, what's going on, where is it going? It's really hot right now for lots of reasons, most of them good. And I want to sort of give some light to what I think is needed in this industry and why it's so important that you are all in this room. And I'm just grateful for you spending your time here, and really important that UW is in this, right? I said that right? Okay, just checking. UW is what I said when I came here 16 years ago, and everyone looked at me and went, what? And then I wore red, and then it was like, you're in the wrong place. And it took me about 5 years to realize that this red-purple thing is really real. And I do have a good, solid mix of red and purple. I'm going to keep going. Disability. Before I dig too deep a grave, what is it and what is it not? Disability is big, and I think many of you know this. So forgive me if I'm teaching or sharing stuff with you that you're like, I know this, Jenny. And I'm like, but I'm going to have to show you anyway, because if we don't have the foundation to the house, I can't go where we need to go in this time. So one, understand this is part of the human experience. Most of you, if not all of you, will experience disability in your lifetime. How many of you are comfortable enough to say that you have a disability in this room? All right, so visually, that's maybe 25, 30% of the room, right? I will tell you as you age, which you can't stop, sorry, 50% of you, on average, will hold your hands up as you get past the age of 55, 65. And that increases. It is correlated with age. We all know this. But 5% are born with disabilities. Others are acquired through accident, illness, and injury. And it traverses the spectrum. Who wants to give me a guess of how many people can see your disability? How much of it is visible, apparent? Give me a number. 14%. Yeah? No. I mean, you get so many credits for trying. The actual number is around 75% is invisible. Actually, maybe you were not that far off. 25% is invisible. And sorry, other way around. 75% is invisible, 25% is invisible. Most disability you cannot see by looking at someone. So think about mental health, neurodiversity, which is the umbrella term for autism, dyslexia, dyspraxia, cognitive disabilities. Then you think about deafness, blindness, mobility, sensory disabilities. It's an enormous spectrum. And humans don't come in singular packages. It would be so much easier if they did. Humans often come in complex packages. So you may have and acquire a disability like ALS or MND. That doesn't impact one thing in the body. That over time impacts them all. Disability is a part of being human. The numbers are growing. That billion number comes from World Health Organization in 2010. We've had this small thing since then called a pandemic. And what is a pandemic at its root? It is a disabling event. The 1 billion number is nowhere near where we are right now. Biggest growing area, mental health, neurodiversity. Just look at the propensity of autism in the 1980s versus what the CDC says the number of autistics are today. It's wild, it's varying. So why am I in this? Why am I, as a fully identified nerd, involved in disability? I work at Microsoft. I've been at Microsoft for 18 years. Why am I in this space? Because I live it, I am it, and it's also the most exciting area of technology. And I will physically fight anyone who disagrees. Not actually. But here's why. Because it hits you on a permanent basis, a temporary basis, and a situational basis. Just think about that from the viewpoint of a designer, of a tech company, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be Microsoft. We're all in this for that reason. Because designing through the lens of disability, designing for accessibility, doesn't just empower the cool community of people with disabilities that are living that experience now, but it empowers every human that hits this at some point in their lifetimes. That's why we're in it. And you'll hear, as I've been talking, just a couple of basics, right? Language. Let's just get grounded on that. It's the number one question that I actually get is, how should I refer to a person with a disability, to a disabled person? What's the right language to do? How do I greet a person who's using a wheelchair? How do I greet a person who's deaf or blind? And the reality is that this is a bit of a pendulum. Language evolves in a beautiful way. Anyone here involved in linguistics? Right, I see a hand. There was I don't know what that means, sir, but it's a very interesting visual sign of a wavering hand. Totally, kinda, right? Language changes, right? In my time here in the US, and I, again, was born in the UK, so language over there, very different. Language here is kind of slap bang in the middle right now between person first and identity first. When I first came to the States, though, it was all about being person first. It evolves and it swings. So my recommendation, if you're talking to disabled people, which, by the way, you need to do, if you don't know a disabled person, you're wrong. You do. They just haven't told you. That's one. But two, be confident, right? Hey, I'd love to learn more. And listen to how they refer to themselves. How do I refer to myself? Jenny, right? Generally. And then I'm deaf and I'm disabled. Proudly so. But you'll see me use both. I use the person with a disability. I have deafness. I am deaf. My kid has autism. She is autistic. Your partner is dyslexic or has dyslexia. And you'll hear both. That's where pet language is. If you want any hints and tips on working with a person with a disability, go check out the World Health Organization guidelines. And also, just be curious. Curiosity is the best thing to do when approaching anyone, any human, but particularly people with disabilities. And also, be aware of this. And I'm going to try and play the video. Let's see if it works. She moved on. Did you see how quick that was? That was really impressive, right? Who knows who that was? All right, you don't count. Of course you do. Forgive me. You do know who that was. Do you want to say it?
Stella Young.
I love this. Someone's saying it, and they're now both signing it at me. Stella Young. Stella Young, an incredible advocate from Australia, so clearly must like Vegemite. She sadly is not with us anymore. And it's a TED Talk that I want you all to take down as homework. Has anyone seen her TED Talk? A couple of you. Okay, or the rest of you, please write it down. You're students. Please write it down, and please do it. And I expect to hear your, no, I don't. It's an incredible TED Talk. I promise it will only take 15 minutes of your time. Why? Because how we think about disability really matters. It matters to me. It matters to the world of accessibility. And again, foundation of the house. Bottom line, what she says is that we are not your inspiration porn. Yes, I say the word porn. Because it matters. We shouldn't be celebrating that someone got up in the morning because they use a wheelchair. We shouldn't be celebrating someone because of their disability in that way. We should be celebrating their accomplishment stat as you would anyone else. All right, we all get disability, yeah? Past the 101, so let's go to 201. Accessibility, what is accessibility? Well, let me give you some sense of the journey that we're on. Who knows what accessibility is? Not enough of you. You are all going to work out passing and getting credits for this. Accessibility has lots of different forms. I walked into this building, and what was there getting into the building? A ramp. What was there as I walked into the building? More ramps. It was open space. I could see things as a deaf person. I was like, oh, that's physical accessibility, right? Digital accessibility, right? This is a human-provided captioning called CART. If that didn't work for any reason, I was about to turn on the captioning, which is auto-captioning built into Windows 11. Captioning, an example of digital accessibility. And it's also a bunch of steps that we take to render and make things accessible. Because often, and the big principle on why does accessibility exist, is that the world around us has not been designed for or with disabled people. If it had been built for disabled people, we wouldn't have to think about ramps. They would just be part of every building's blueprint. Every single one. Your homes, your grocery stores, federal buildings, any building you go to, there wouldn't be, oh, how do we get this ramp in here? It would just be part of how we build. In the digital world, if we were putting a video up on whatever social media, what an interesting world right now, platform, it would just be captioned by design. It's not. And so we have to render things accessible. We have to make things accessible. And that's the journey that we've been on at Microsoft. We actually started this, and somebody actually sent me this long, beautiful email who was at Microsoft in the 1980s. It actually started way before I even knew. And the first feature was one called sticky keys. Has anyone ever hit enter too many times on a PC? All right, you're all nodding. You know that was designed, right? It wasn't an accident. If you hit that, you have the ability to create shortcuts. That came in 1994 for people with mobility. Right? Fun fact, right? Now it's evolved. I came into the company in 2005 to work on a small product called Hotmail. Anyone even know what that is? Anyone still have a Hotmail? Oh my God! All right, that's more than any room I've ever been in. I don't know what that says about UW, but I love it. I still have a Hotmail as well. I came into work in London, ended up working on advertising and all these things, and in the middle of it, realized that Microsoft wasn't what I thought it was going to be. I joined from a company called T-Mobile in Germany and Europe. And while my voice is spectacular, I can't hear you. I'm also really modest. I can't hear your speech. I'm profoundly deaf. And I thought coming to Microsoft would be a deaf girl's dream because I had this image of Microsofties never talking to one another, but just emailing, right, using Hotmail. And occasionally, using Video Messenger. I don't know, but anyone remember Video Messenger? No? Okay, I'm pushing my luck. Well, that wasn't true. I actually joined in London with a European job and found out that everyone wanted to talk a lot in like languages and accents and odd times of day. My boss was here in Redmond and I was using a product called Link Communicator at the time. I really am that old. And found out very quickly that it wasn't the place I thought it was going to be. And I hadn't self-identified when I walked in the door. I didn't tell them how deaf I was. I didn't ask for an interpreter or captioning even. I then joined the deaf community. I then joined every other community and created the Disability Employee Group, which was 6 groups at the time, is now over 22 groups. It's global. Some of the latest groups are around traumatic brain injury, PTSD, mental health. Just communities are blowing up in a great way at Microsoft right now. Then got involved in this thing called accessibility and started learning all the amazing things that have been happening and this amazing community of people that are working on it. That got me hooked. And then I had the privilege of stepping into this role 7 years ago. And what does a CAO do, which is the fancy title, basically meaning that my job is to grow an ecosystem, a durable, sustainable ecosystem of accessibility at Microsoft for our employees and for our customers. Now, that could be an engineering lens of just, let's just fix Windows and make Windows great. That's not durable. That's not sustainable. That's not making sure that you're leaning into the lived experience and the expertise from people with disabilities. So we started thinking about this differently. And that's really been our approach and our learning so far. And then last year, we took the chance to up the goal even more, to go beyond an ecosystem to tackle societal goals, to tackle the disability divide. Because while I joke and I humor, this is a really serious problem. People with disabilities have social stigma that they deal with on a daily basis. They are woefully under and unemployed as compared to non-disabled peers. Inclusion in education is less. Self-identification is less. There are undoubtedly people at Microsoft and likely here who have disabilities who haven't asked for the help they need to be successful, like I did when I joined Microsoft. Without that support, you're limiting your ceiling. So what we want to do is methodically, and the industry needs to do, is methodically change the lens on disability. I would love to make it so that a ramp is part of a blueprint of everything, and take that principle to every part of society. Now, I don't have a magic wand, so we have to get a little bit focused. And what we're focused on is building that ecosystem that's durable, sustainable, but we tackle certain areas, employment, education, and more. Make sense? Is it changing? Well, I did want to give some sense, right? This was the second question I got actually today, was from an amazing gang here, which was, what's happening in the world of accessibility roles? How do I get your job? Bring it on. I bring it on. I want to see more jobs. And let me just say that in Washington State alone, there are now leads of accessibility at pretty much every large company that you can think of. Amazon, Expedia, Boeing is the newest one. We all have peers to me working on accessibility within their companies. In LinkedIn, which is a part of the Microsoft family, we have the ability to also see what's happening in the ecosystem. And corporates are hiring people with disabilities. In fact, you can now pick from any number of different accessibility jobs for accessibility. Why? Because in order to build accessible, inclusive stuff and not build excluded stuff, we have to have accessibility. Not just because it's a legal requirement, but because that's what we should be doing in society. So we need this expertise. Number of jobs in the accessibility field has grown dramatically. The latest numbers put it 171% growth since 2019. Now, percentages, as you know, who's in statistics? None of you. Great, move on. That's fantastic. Percentage of a small number is still a small number. But I will say in the US alone, there are 12,000 positions, and that was 6 months ago. So this is a really growing gig. What does that mean for you guys when we think about college and the pipeline and the talent pool and where we're going? It means we need you more invested. And we need more investment, and not you, but the whole industry, in accessibility and in the principles of inclusive design. And what's the difference? Accessibility is the methodical way in which you render an environment accessible. You build accessible. Inclusive design is building something with and through the lens of disability, preferably with, and you methodically work to pull in that insight and then build technologies on the back of it, right? There used to be, and there is still, a frame of universal design, and there's a lot of debate on inclusive versus universal, and I'm not going to go into that because your brains are bigger than mine. But the universal design is really the principle that you can make everything accessible for everyone, everyone inclusive for everything. I don't think that's the case. I argue with it a little bit. And here's just some of the principles of that, right? I have a lot of people on my team who are blind or low vision, and I don't hear. What is accessible for me as a deaf person is a very visual world. What is accessible for a blind person is a very audible world. My team meetings are really fun, right? Because we have every disability represented that we know of. Universally designing for everyone, yeah, there is a common denominator you can get to. But truly getting to that lived is inclusive design. And it may be nuanced and different. But again, there's books on that, right? Read books. So if you get this gig that disability is a strength, it's a strength to tech companies, it's a strength to building, it's a strength to corporate, it's a strength to society, then what we've really got to move forward to is how do we build it in? And there are some learnings that we've got that I think are really important to some of that, right? Simple ones, because I know it's late in the afternoon. One, it all starts with your talent pool. And I would summarize this by saying you've got to have disabled people at the heart and the core of wherever you are. If you are looking at companies going forward, and you're looking at companies and you're saying, hey, do I want to go work for them? You need to be interviewing them on how they're going to support you and your disability, and how they're going to support you for your success. But you're also looking for companies that are actively wanting to pull you in the right way. This is just one example of one of our hiring programs to proactively do that. Microsoft representation of disability, just published, is 7.8% of our US workforce. The reality is that it's a lot more, and we're methodically working to grow that. It's gone from around 4% in the last couple of years to 7.8%. Still lower than it should be. But we wanted to pull in neurodiverse talent. Why? High degree of STEM, also high degree of unemployment, underemployment, where people are very highly qualified, but they're working in very low-level jobs as compared to their skills. The reason being, the interview process is sucky. You put a neurodiverse autistic talent in front of a generalized principled interview, please tell me about your strengths and weaknesses. That ain't gonna fly. A cognitive disabled brain works differently. If I said that to my 15-year-old autistic daughter, she would give me the cock-headed, what? Now she's 15. But she also would just say, I'm good, Mum, at everything. She's really not. But that's how she would answer. She would not give any fidelity to those answers. She would not give any click down. She would not give any examples. I really have a lot of work to do. But the key is that some of this is just her brain would not equate with that question. That isn't bad on them. That's bad on us. We were closing the door to neurodiverse talent. So we now don't interview in that any traditional way. It's done through a virtual Minecraft Academy every quarter. So we don't do that traditional interview process. We build up to some degree of interview, but it's with a lot of backing. And we train the managers and teams around it. So they come in, they game. Who likes to game? You don't have to be shy about gaming. We have Xbox, guys. We bloody love gaming. They play Minecraft, and through that, we're able to learn a lot about them. We're able to learn about their skills, what they're good at, how they tackle landscapes and environments, how they build, how they work with other people. And we're able then to identify if they have the skill sets for the same job, same pay, same benefits as anyone else, right? Adapting how you think isn't about adapting the person. It's about adapting the environment to build culture. There's also a great one in terms of culture of teaching accessibility. This is where tech companies have come together to actually embed accessibility. Who's had accessibility in their curriculum, in their credits, somewhere, sprinkled? Okay, so maybe 30% of the room, maybe? You guys are shy with your hands. They're kind of wavering down towards the chest area. So about 30%. Accessibility does need to be taught, right? So including accessibility, know that at Microsoft, every employee is mandated to take training on accessibility, including disability etiquette and language. It's mandatory. 170,000 Microsofties have taken this training so far. Simple virtual training. But it goes more than that. I had a great question, what would you like to see? And I'm like, I want a minor, if not a major, in accessibility. Because then, as you come to Microsoft, I'm picking up talent that I can put into Xbox, Windows, gaming, and go create inclusive games, right? What an asset to the entire industry on this path to build more inclusively and more accessibly. And then what happens when you have culture and when you have accessibility learned is that you start to build really cool stuff. And this is the point where Microsoft is at now, is that while we're far from perfect, I'm 7 years in, we're far from perfect, and a large inventory of products and websites across everything we do. And when I came to the company, does anyone remember, was it Windows? This thing called Vista? Does anyone remember that? You did a very certain wave on that one, whereas you were like wishy-washy earlier. I've tried to eliminate it from my memory. But that period between Vista and the one before, I think was 95, right, was 7 years. Do you know that? It was a 7-year process to get that version of Windows out. Windows is now releasing at least once a year. Office is releasing every month. LinkedIn updates 3 times a day. Imagine that from a test remediation perspective, right? We've had to get better because technology is speeding up. The formats are speeding up. The languages are speeding up. So if you take that as given, you've got to build a lot of muscle in how to govern, test, remediate, and build accessibly. Otherwise, you're just going to be constantly tripping over yourself with every update to every website. Right? And that's really been our focus. But now we can focus on building inclusively and building cool stuff, right? So there's a couple of examples on the screen of some of that stuff. And this is where I did have a bag, and it's sitting in my office in Redmond, full of the toys. But I can show you some of them, right? One is a new mouse. Who uses a mouse? I know it's a really alien concept. What? That's like most of the room. You're mice people? Whoa! Okay, so here's the design problem with mice. You have a hand, right? And you put it on a device, and that device is generally about the same. Who has an ergonomic mouse? Okay, maybe about 40%. And that mouse is generally static, right? It's a piece of plastic. Anyone here comfortable to say they have mobility or dexterity, arthritis? Okay, we've got a couple of hands. It's a very common bar of disability. In fact, mobility is probably one of the biggest areas of disability, right? And she's showing me her pink ergonomic mouse, which is fantastic. I love that it's pink. And these things, we all use them, but they often cause issues, right? Depending on how much you're using them, depending where you are in finals week, and depending on where your fit of your hand is, your size of your hand, and your mobility. So why not change the form factor? The form factor doesn't make sense, and it was time to reinvent it. So we pulled a bunch of people with mobility in the room. In fact, this was the outcome to the adaptive controller work that we did for Xbox several years ago. Figured out, like, this was just not a problem with, again, people. It was a problem with the environment. It was a problem with the form factor. And so how could you take that mouse and completely blow it up? And when you blow up and think a little bit differently, and you take it from the lens of a kid, which is what we do. Oh, it's gone from my screen. You can't see it. I will describe. We took a lens of a 12-year-old in the Netherlands who had cerebral palsy and mobility disabilities. It came to a hackathon project, so this is where every year everyone comes in, no matter what they know about disability, and says, hey, I want to hack on mental health. I want to redesign Microsoft Teams for the deaf people. For deaf people, I want to do whatever. And they come with a nutty idea, and we say, OK, here's some toolkits, and here's some advice. And then they come out at the end of it with an amazing thing that they want to launch by Tuesday. And then we have to go through the iteration process. The adaptive controller, which is accessible gaming, took about 3 years to get from hackathon to product stage. The mouse, which is the one on the left, is basically there's a front part to it, and then there's a tail. The tail, you can adapt and change to whatever you want. There are multiple form factors. You can download them and 3D print them yourself. You can have one tail in the morning, click a button, change it for the afternoon. Or you can just order them from a third party for minimal bucks, right? It's an adaptive mouse environment. Why? Because it, again, needs to be more inclusive. I've been using this mouse for about 6 months now, and it's rocking. We've also just launched the inclusive pen with the same principle. You know the pens that we all use on our screens? Surfaces have touch screens, very fancy. Well, you sometimes need them to be different depending on your mobility. Well, why not just give you the ability to 3D print that yourself? This is the first time that Microsoft has put CAD files online, right? It's the first time that we've gone after technology that is easy to plug and play and is affordable, right? Let me just be clear. Everything we do is affordable. But for this, it's got to be affordable, right? Again, one of the issues with disabled and the environment is cost. There's another one, which is stickers. Who's heard of accessible stickers? I love you guys, but again, you don't count. But let me just describe this. She says risking losing connectivity in some way. Can you see my laptop here at the front? I'll describe it. There are 2 stickers on here. What we heard from people is that they were using a laptop, but when you close this thing, it was really hard to open. And people were using forks to open a laptop. Well, we got, again, people in a room, figured out a bunch of stickers to be able to pull it out of a bag. And they're strong enough that you can just hold it and wiggle it. And I terrify people when I do that. Or attach a lanyard, so you can just pull it out of your bag. So a girl on my team who has MD, muscular dystrophy, has thrown her laptop at me multiple times. She likes me as a boss. But why she does that is because it's an involuntary movement. Now she pulls her lanyard and pulls her laptop out, and it's attached to her wrist, right? And then simple things like adding stickers onto the keys. These were designed with the blind, low vision community to give tactile indicators for certain keys. And if you've got any of our devices, they're becoming standard now, just put your fingers over F4, and you'll see that we've added tactile buttons on them, right? I'm not telling you this because I want you to go and get them. I'm telling you this because of the principles of how they were built and what you can create by thinking through that lens. That Surface Adaptive Kit is just online. It's a bunch of stickers. People are putting them on their microwaves because they're tactile, right? So I have some on my power and my USB, and they're both different, so I can tell without looking which is my USB side. How many of you do that on a daily basis, right? It's also because designing and building this way makes better stuff for everyone. A better mouse, a better, easier way to use your everyday technologies. Make sense? So where are we going? Let's talk about that before I open to questions. So please harass me with questions. Don't leave me here quiet. There's a lot that the industry is doing. I'm giving you one example from one company, but trust, if my dear friends and colleagues from Apple, Google, were in the room, they would give you a whole list more. In fact, if you want to have real fun, go to one of our conferences. We all have them, and we all go to them, and hear what they talk about. You'd be amazed. And if you don't know what the latest is in any of these tech companies, go and visit their websites. I promise you, you will find a product, a feature that you never knew existed. And most everything that we're putting online right now is free. But where's it going? We got to accelerate. That's the biggest thing. We desperately need to accelerate certain areas. Right? We've got these principles of inclusive design. We know that if we get muscle involved, then we can motor at scale to build inclusive, accessible products. But we haven't changed a couple of paradigms. One of those is that it's still too easy to build inaccessible goods, whether that's a building, a website, or a piece of code. That shouldn't be the case. Technology should be accessible by design. It should be hard, if not impossible, to build something that isn't accessible. Still the case today. Most of the cost of accessibility is remediating, fixing inaccessible code. That's one. This is another one. This is AI. AI has accelerated accessibility like nothing else. If I go back to the beginning of the pandemic, which was just when I met these guys from UW, pre-pandemic, we all met in a room, and we were talking about UW Create, and oh, we really want to do this. And I was like, oh, this is exciting. We even crossed the bridge. I mean, it was shocking. They came into a dingy room in Redmond, and we spoke across a table. It was like, I can't even remember those days. And then 3 months later, we're all in the virtual world, right? I sit 6 feet away from my ASL interpreter, and I use predominantly ASL for my day-to-day communication and captioning as my backup. And I had to flip overnight to figure out how to do that virtually so I could see my interpreter and use captioning. Percentage increase in captioning in those first 2 months, 3,600%. 3,600% increase in captioning overnight, and it was already a big number. We made captioning free and available on every platform within a couple of months. Why? Because we could. Artificial intelligence gave us the ability to provide high-quality captioning. We then added CART and a bunch of other things. But the reality is that speech recognition is still an immature beast. The other way around, right? And it's got to improve, particularly when you think about it from the lens of impacted voice. People whose voice may be impacted by disability, by disease. Think ALS, MS, Down syndrome. So this is one example for you to noodle on as you go forward. I was sitting in a room with Steve Gleason, who works, another Washington native, who won was given the honor of the gold ceremony, gold something. It was really important, so important I can't remember what it is. In the important thing in DC, congressional thing with a dome. We were talking at the end about how do we need to accelerate, right? And I was there with some friends from Google and some friends from other tech, and we're like, we got to figure this out. This is silly. It's taken 2.5 years to get it off the ground, but you've got 5 tech companies working together now through the University of Illinois to collect those data samples to accelerate the discipline of speech recognition, right? We need AI to be smarter for people with disabilities, so we need more data. It's one example of many, but I do want to close before giving some time for questions, and then I heard there's a reception. Just acknowledging kind of 2 things. One, entering this gig is hard, right? I still maintain, and again, bring back my fight principle, that this is the best, most important space that anyone can enter. But as someone said to me earlier today, it's also important to look after yourself. Advocacy fatigue is an incredibly real thing. Now, it's not constrained to disability or accessibility. I think we've all felt advocacy fatigue in any number of different ways. But I just want to acknowledge it here, and I want everyone to support it as they go forward, to make sure that they give time and space, and bluntly, that anyone and everyone prioritizes their well-being and knows that we ain't going to solve this tomorrow or by Tuesday at 5. This is going to take a long time. And if you want to know how long, put the other homework, Netflix, Crip Camp. Best movie ever. It was Oscar nominated, and it's all about the disability rights movement. But when you do have an incredible gang of amazing humans that come together to build something like UW Create, and then you put them in a room full of toys, which we have, the Inclusive Tech Lab, which is all of these pictures on my screen, which is the dedicated lab for disability and accessibility design at Microsoft. You can create amazing wizardry, incredible things. It's worth it, people. And I need you, we all need you to be invested in this going forward. So whether you're excited by the jellyfish up there, or you're excited by the fact that your president spoke about the power of accessibility at that summit alongside Anu Nadella, who is an incredible human and the wife of our CEO, alongside our chief product officer and my boss. This is an important space, and we all need to invest to make it viable and make it a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. We have time for questions.
Please don't be shy. There we go.
When is Microsoft Focus coming out?
It's available now. Yeah. I was going to show that when we were but it wasn't showing my screen, sadly. Somebody said to me, we've got to make accessibility easy to find, easier to use, like instantly available. So we actually, with Windows 11, we moved Focus and online captioning, which is online and offline, available, and everything into the bottom start bar on Windows 11. Just click it, it all comes up. And Focus is wicked. It's great, by the way. Who gets distracted while they're writing emails or writing a paper? Ding, ding. Who gets tired eyes, by the way? All right, let's keep going. Who couldn't follow a video that was in a foreign language? All right. Do you realize that you all need accessibility? Yeah, you're all like, yeah. So here's what I would recommend as your basic settings. Put focus sessions on, so have your focus, which basically minimize all notifications, all other things, everything stops for the periods. It's designed for mental health and neurodiversity, but it's right there. Put on nightlight as default on your settings, which is the blue light that often people buy glasses for. And then turn auto captions on everything you do. Yeah. And you will find your cognitive load, your battery power, goes all the way up. It's a good question.
Should I have a microphone or just? Hey, John Freilich, part of UW Create. It's an honor to have you. I'm struck by the scale of impact that one can make when we're thinking about accessibility first. A great example for a Microsoft tool, just to plug it, is the accessibility features in PowerPoint, both in terms of captions, but as well as when you're creating PowerPoint slides, the tool itself will remind you about accessibility principles. So for example, to alt text your images. And I was just wondering about your thoughts on incorporating these sorts of accessibility first principles in design tools, and particularly in programming tools like GitHub, where we can start to help developers and remind them about accessibility and perhaps give them tips like through GitHub Copilot about making their designs more accessible.
It's an honor to, now I know who you are. So, yeah. You know, this is one, someone else, another question was, how do you make your lectures accessible? So we were noodling on that. How do you make your everything Office, right? PowerPoint, Excel. And by the way, you know, there's, again, tech companies do this. How do you make your stuff accessible? Well, again, go back to the principles. You want to do it by design. You want to. So we put in basically a spell check for accessibility. It's in the review tab on everything Office. And you can set it by default. And so as you're building your document and you're adding in fancy pictures, and it's going to tell you, hey, you might need to investigate. Do you want me to fix it for you? Because I'm really smart. And it will fix what it can with AI and guide you to check it and do all the right things. That principle we're leaning a lot more into going forward. Know that I think we've got, I was looking at the numbers before I came over. I think it's like 30 million active users of that every month. Don't quote me on that. It's a lot. It's become very prolific. And actually, GitHub is now part of the Microsoft umbrella, and they have just hired an incredible leader to work on accessibility, who is not just a well-established accessibility leader, but blind also himself, so has a ton of lived experience. And they just made some announcements yesterday, so you might want to check those out from GitHub Universe. Yeah, totally. That's the exciting one for me, is that's the gate for all open source technology. If you can get that sucker moving, that thing moving, we could really, really have a big impact. So I get really excited about GitHub. Being clear, I have a music degree. I'm not a dev.
Hi, I'm Jay. I work with John, actually. But one of the questions I have is, one of my favorite sort of accessible technologies that Microsoft created is Seeing AI. I was just wondering, and I don't think this was mentioned, but I was just wondering sort of what your opinion is about Seeing AI. What are the good and bad things about Seeing AI? And hopefully you can comment on the bad, because it is a Microsoft product. So yeah, just your opinion on it.
Seeing AI is a free app that runs on the Fruity devices, and we just shared that it's coming soon to Android as well, which was the #1 ask for Seeing AI. And why going to Android? We do believe, I was in Africa earlier this year, and I think it's really important for particularly developing world that technology moves. Why? It's an AI-based product. It basically, you hold up your phone, and folks, I encourage you to do this during the reception, because it's a really fun party trick, as well as being an incredibly powerful accessibility tool. But it's designed for blind low vision. And if you use essentially the camera function on people, on barcodes, on text, it will read it out to you. It will also export it to Immersive Reader, and you can use dyslexic tools with it as well. It's a really important app. It's free, which is, again, always important. It was really our first foray. That singular app really led to the creation of our AI for Accessibility grant program. And the latest stuff on it is insanely cool, which is where the makers of like Advil, a company called Halion, have now put all of their product information into the back end of Seeing AI. So if you use Seeing AI, try it, right? I encourage you to. Tell me how good or bad it is. And you hold it over a barcode of Advil or Centrum or any of their products, it will give you the full description, right? That's important. Ingredients, directions, usage, dosage, really important stuff, right? So again, getting to equity, I think, is really important. Limits, I think, it's been restricted to iOS, which is, there were, for a lot of reasons, we need to develop that code. I'm really excited it's coming to Android. That's been the really big one, I think, for us, because I need this in the developing world. Need this. You know, we've got issues here. Get outside of the time zone. That's really the big one for me.
Hello, Jenny. Thank you for joining us. So throughout your talk today, you kind of encouraged us to be empathetic. You gave us a lot of examples where you asked us to imagine how you would use a mouse, so on, right? At the same time, as developers, I think there's a lot of pressures on us to be unempathetic, right? We see dark patterns. We see addictive patterns of notifications, right, because they drive engagement. How do we tackle that as developers, and what are kind of your comments on this tension?
No, I think, and also developers have limited time, resource, money, all of those things come into play for sure. It's the constant. I feel very, very fortunate. For the most part, I don't have to worry about the generalized ROI of accessibility at Microsoft anymore, which is, you know, there are so many people in the world that could benefit this. Why should I develop for this? And I used to hate that argument. I think it's a horrible trap. Because I would just turn around and say, so you want to make this product to exclude people with disability? Your guilt is such a beautiful thing. But I think we've all got infinite time and resource, and I think that's the crux of it. But I think this is where I think educating developers on how to do it efficiently, embed it, build tools that, whether it's Figma, whatever it may be, that are just build it in by design, so that it becomes a natural part of what you do, and empower devs with the right tool sets. And a lot of ours are online and just free, and Google's, I know, are the same, because we were talking about it the other day. Download them and use them. And remember always the principle: if you don't know if it's accessible, it's not. Right? It's not. Do you want to be the dev behind that? Again, guilt. Such a. Yeah. But I do think a lot of this is education, and then we've got to build the right tools that make it sustainable and durable.
Great. Thank you. That's all the time we have today. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.